Hello, do you need a smart personal assistant with artificial intelligence? I would say it depends on how it will help us and how it will do it. I responsibly declare that, when used correctly, a robotic vacuum cleaner relieves us of a decent chunk of tedious and dusty work. But what if the robot helps us do what we are accustomed to doing with our own mind, personally, and even with pleasure? In our profession, hobby, entertainment, there is routine that is not always exciting to do. Can personal assistants with artificial intelligence help us with this routine and not cause harm? Let's figure it out. Let me remind you that ChatGPT, which revolutionized our perceptions, appeared just about a year ago, in the fall of 2022. The little one is a year old, and it has already managed to surprise, scare, and make us think. Other children of this family have appeared, and we are already talking about limitations for universal generative artificial intelligence systems. The corporate systems sector is growing like yeast, where specialized smart robots are being trained. Thinkers in different countries are pondering the ethics and philosophy of coexistence with artificial intelligence. Meanwhile, the techno giants, so-called big tech, are reaching a new level of intrusion and money-making, preparing personal assistants based on artificial intelligence. A couple of months ago, Google announced that it is expanding its Bard to several applications, including Gmail and Docs. The next day, Amazon revealed that soon they will create the possibility of almost human interaction with Alexa. And right away, Microsoft held an event where they announced that they will include a generative AI-based assistant named Copilot in most of their applications. Actually, Copilot is already part of Windows 11 and is rapidly growing and getting smarter. Different products, different services, different companies and platforms, but the essence of the messages is the same. Generative AI is amazing. Our products based on it are amazing, and we will include them in all the usual tools to make your life amazing. Or as Microsoft 365 General Manager Colette Stahlbaumer said, soon you won't be able to imagine your life without them. Somehow I'm uncomfortable with such zeal. We live without robots, personal assistants. We hardly know them yet, but they are already being imposed on us like some kind of drug to make us dependent on them. So for starters, I would like to imagine my life with them. And do you want to? Then watch further. First, I will engage in my favorite activity and issue another disclaimer. We will not talk about the miracle on wheels or legs, capable of making eyes, trailing after us around the house, and laughing at our jokes. A talking mannequin is impressive, but not more. Let's leave aside the topic that moving sexual dolls with some communication functions are already being mass-produced and are intended to solve the problem of loneliness for some people. Let's talk about assistants for smart people, to which I boldly count myself and you, dear listeners. As usual, I searched and read, and I saw two key roles of a personal assistant based on artificial intelligence: advisor and agent. The advisor provides information and suggests what and how to do. The advisor himself does nothing of what he advises you. An agent, on the other hand, performs actions on your behalf. A true assistant ideally combines both these roles. However, they are significantly different and can be implemented separately, and maybe they even should be separate. Let's imagine the functions of an advisor. Suppose you're planning a vacation and want not just to bask in the sun, but also to see something attractive. Based on your interests known to it, the advisor can independently scour the internet, travel sites and portals, check reviews, and offer you options in order of your preferences. For the selected option, the advisor can choose a hotel, flight, find where to download tours and maps. But it does nothing. It only suggests and advises. An agent, on the other hand, can, by simply clicking buttons and links and entering your data, book a flight, hotel, car, restaurant, guide, and even escort on your behalf. We all understand that the actions of an agent can be indistinguishable from your own, as even modern robots can pass the silly traffic light test. As I said, the advisor advises, and the agent acts, acting on your behalf or by your commission. A robot can suggest how to do a job or do it for you. A robot can identify patterns of actions and even say what to do in a particular situation. And if it has the powers of an agent, do what seems to be the most correct, that is, probable in its generative brains. Think about it. Within permitted limits, a robot can replace you personally. This is the wonderful world of the future. However, there are obstacles and difficulties on this path. A robot assistant can help you with personal matters and at work. In any case, for effective work, it must know everything about you. You should have no secrets from it. It must know about your experience, health, habits, preferences, allergies, vaccinations, friends, enemies, relatives, and your relationships with all of them. I can list for a long time what the robot needs to know. I just can't imagine what it doesn't need to know about you. Well, in principle, a professional assistant can limit itself to knowing your professional experience and preferences. But then some aspects of activities such as training will be difficult for it to plan. And what about your compatibility with people, which should be taken into account and is impossible to consider without having detailed personal information about you? So, all the aforementioned tech giants have specifically talked a lot about their robots not having access to and not being able to use users' personal information. But how will they then help? Their advice will correspond to the situation, but will be detached from the personality of the person they are advising. I think the value of such advice will be small, because in this case, the robot may well advise a person to do something that the person cannot or fundamentally does not want to do. That is, again, the application of such smart and wonderful robots is narrowed down to professions where personal experience is not important. Well, it seems to me that there are not many such professions in the intellectual sphere. In these talks about the inviolability of personal data, there is a lot of cunning. I believe that all our personal data are already on the network. Those data that are not stored directly in various databases and clouds are calculated using indirect information with simple algorithms. It just needs to be openly said that they have all our personal data, and they only promise us that robot assistants will not use them. But fulfilling this promise will devalue personalized assistants. Conclusion. First, the widespread use of personal assistants under the control of artificial intelligence will require granting them the widest access to personal information. Otherwise, their help will not be personalized, and therefore, they will not be personal assistants. One of my friends asked ChatGPT to compose a dream team of his favorite football club for all the post-war years. The robot did not refuse, did not say that it did not know, but composed a team from football players of different clubs with Russian and Ukrainian surnames. Moreover, it even invented in which years each football player played for my friend's favorite club. And it gave the answer very confidently, with the aplomb of an experienced fan. Let's assume that we give robots access to current and complete information on the range of questions they might be asked, and teach them to say, "I don't know," for other questions. But how can we verify that the information we receive is correct and the advice is well-founded? Neural networks make mistakes. This is a fact. They give the most probable answer based on what they are trained in. I could explain how and why this happens, but not now. Their information and conclusions need to be checked with critical thinking, which they lack. If a corporate or industry neural network is used by many people, its answers are inevitably evaluated. But what about personal assistants? Probably we will quickly, immediately trust them, and so it will be until the first mistake. After the first mistake, we will start checking their conclusions. After the second or third, we will lose trust in them forever. And the topic of personal assistant robots will fade away. So it's better to not trust them from the start and then not relax. Hence, the conclusion: critical evaluation of the results of personal robots. Work is necessary and inevitable. We can never fully trust them. There should always be two opinions, the robot's and yours. It is better to use only the opinion with which you agree. Such is the protocol. This is not an obstacle, but rather a limitation, but the boundaries of it may be quite strict. Let's assume personal assistants will be immediately trained in specialties. That is, upon registration, we will indicate our professional interests, and they will roll out a version that knows almost everything in these areas. But people grow during their professional activities. Let the professional personal assistant be connected to sources of current data and also learn. But what if we learn something or become skilled in something that is not yet or no longer in the robot's data sources? If we do not compare our knowledge with the robot's knowledge, we will less often come to the same conclusions. We will have to either completely trust the robot or not trust it at all. Both are bad. In the first case, we degrade. In the second, the need for the robot disappears. Hence the next conclusions. The knowledge of the personal assistant and its user should be synchronized. A person should learn from the robot and teach the robot everything they learn besides it. A disruption in this synchronization will gradually split their cooperation. With a robot agent, it's even more interesting. Let's skip that for performing many actions. The assistant agent needs even more personal information than the advisor. In the travel example, it will need passport details, bank cards, and access to the banking system for confirmation to make and book all orders. Well, okay, suddenly we become so trusting. But what about responsibility for actions? If the robot does something wrong, are we ready to answer for it? After all, it's not the program code that will be held responsible. And these are money, fines for canceling erroneous orders, and the like. And the advisor's responsibility for erroneous information and wrong advice? If you follow such advice, you can commit actions leading to criminal responsibility, and the robot will not be imprisoned. The one who trusted the robot will have to deal with the consequences. And who needs that? And another conclusion, the robot cannot be responsible for its actions, so it is unlikely that anyone will entrust it with anything even remotely important. And now the most interesting part, for dessert, so to speak. Have you ever thought about how we communicate with computers in general and with robots in particular? We either make a choice or write instructions. If we choose by clicking with a mouse, that's half the trouble, provided that we know exactly what we are clicking on and why. Choice in the interface is usually unambiguous, but our textual or voice queries are a different matter. The robot will understand what we said or wrote, but will it understand what we meant? No matter what language we speak, there is always a manner and style of expression, habits, words and phrases, idioms, incomplete sentences. They can be understood if there is context. But what if we forgot to tell the robot this context? Remember, I talked about such a craft as prompt engineering? In Odessa, they say, the kind of question you ask determines the kind of answer you get. And I also said, and I'm sure of this, that the answer of a neural network strictly depends on the content and form of the request. This is verified. So does it mean that all users of AI-based personal assistants will have to become query constructors? And to be in constant tension of, did I ask the robot correctly, that it answered me like this? I think this will further narrow the circle of those who want to treat robots as assistants. Of course, maybe it's possible to make such a robot that, over the years of communicating with us, will learn to understand us with half a word. But in what capacity will we communicate with it until then? As a pupil, certainly not as our assistant. Hence another conclusion. Personal intelligent robot assistants will be useless until they learn to understand not only what we said, but also what we meant. And we are still far from that, as far as I know. I am far from thinking that I am original in my critical attitude. To be honest, I have read more than 1 or 10 articles with the same doubts. I am sure that such articles are read by the smart people from the techno giants. But their goal is not to make our world amazing. Their goal is to make money, again selling us something. Moreover, they are fiercely competing with each other for this fabulous potential market, and therefore will soon push a new toy onto it. If they do not solve the listed problems, in my subjective opinion, it will remain a toy, at least for some time. And here's what we should think about. A personal, trusted assistant is often the closest person, closer than relatives, loved ones, and friends. There can be no secrets from it. It will finally have the most complete and most personal information about us. Where will it be stored? In the cloud? Somehow I don't like the idea. On our personal computer, with a guarantee that there are no copies in any cloud? Hard to believe. But if all the information is indeed on our personal device, won't it turn out, with the right approach, that such an assistant in electronic form will be better than any most devoted person? After all, the program can simply be erased with all the trusted secrets. How do you like this view of the problem? Maybe it's worth the trouble to raise a personal robot? Subscribe. It's just the beginning.